go ahead and start it up, get it going here, make sure everything is working. Make sure everything is working. Looks like everything is working. Oh boy. Well, greetings all. It's Max and we're back. We survived the whatever, running down to the Capitol, I guess is what's going on. How you doing, Critical Mask? Hervey, Schmervy. Oh boy. What an exciting, like month or so, or beginning of the month in news. 2020, 2021. So as I'm perusing around things, obviously you got the whole Capitol deal going on. Like to see what people think about that. I'm not, it's like, it's good people kind of stand up for their beliefs, but it's like you're fighting over a guy that is a puppet. So it's like you're fighting over the sock puppet. Which sock puppet do you want to win? But it's kind of hard to know what to think about it because it's good that people are finally doing something. Where are these people lashing out when Trump raised the debt by $18 trillion to put on you and your kids and everybody that comes after you? The biggest spender in history, right? Where is all this people coming out about the anti-gun laws he's passed, and about recently, of course, every president as they leave their term or they think they're about to go, they have their big list of presidential pardons. No one cares. I mean, of course, the important thing, is that people think that the little election deal they had going on there was kind of a fraud, and apparently, it's kind of a massive one. So people are a little upset, and it's good that people are doing something, I guess. So of course today we're going to take a look at Drudge Report and just kind of go through some of the links as what's the hot news from the news media that basically if they're reporting on it, it's a lie. All right. So we'll take a look at some of these things and see, what possibly has an element of truth in it and what is just garbage. Now, this one's truthful. YouTube announces new strike policy, punishing channels posting false claims. Punishing channels posting false claims. Amazing. Well, obviously they should. We can't have people freely speaking and being wrong on the internet. Can't have that. In light of the pro-Trump mob that breached U.S. Capitol Wednesday as the joint congressional session to certify electoral college votes, blah, blah, blah. The writing in this sentence is terrible. So anyways, as a result of storming the Capitol, now this gives justification for more lockdown and more censorship and get off of YouTube. It's pretty much what YouTube is saying, right? So they're saying, well, we can excuse this because, people overran the Capitol building. And it's like, we'll take a look at some of the news, but they make it like it's just this horrendous thing like Sandy Hook or a mall shooting that people overran the Capitol building. And I've watched video of it and it looks like people were pretty nice. A little different than like what the other protests going on in like Minneapolis where buildings are burning down, for the insurance money and the people that were bussed in from out of town and paid to start those. It kind of looked like just a bunch of people who are ticked and wanted to be heard. Very interesting, but now that everything auto updates to library permanently and can't be removed by YouTube, we'll see how this plays out, because I'll be testing their policy. It sounds like new strike policy. For anyone who doesn't understand what goes on with YouTube, is somebody says they don't like your video and you get a strike. Okay. And then if you get 3 strikes, then they delete your channel, regardless of how many years you've been on or whatever. And a lot of the stuff is automated. So if you just don't like somebody's channel or don't like their content, you can just create a whole bunch of accounts and flag the channel, and then they will get taken down. Okay. That's how the system works. Other things is like, obviously YouTube is very left leaning and you say stuff they don't like, or you push, they're also CIA. So you push the stuff that, like maybe satellites aren't what you think they are. Maybe space is kind of a fraud, stuff like that. it'll get taken down. So the video sharing platform said in a series of tweets Thursday that due to the disturbing events, they're pretty upset that all those people that they bought and paid for might be getting kicked out of office. Pretty upset. Implementing new standards. Over the last month, we removed thousands of videos which spread misinformation, claiming widespread voter fraud changed the result of the 2020 election, including several videos President Trump posted from to his own channel. So the president of the United States claims voter fraud, brings a whole bunch of cases, but that's fraudulent information according to YouTube. And they'll say that you're a bad person and, bye-bye to your channel if you post on that. Interesting. Land of the free, home of the slave, freedom to say what we tell you to say, sort of thing, And then you wonder why people like go down and storm Capitol buildings. Imagine that. Channels that receive a strike are temporarily suspended from posting or live streaming. Channels that receive 3 strikes in the same 90-day period will be permanently removed from YouTube. We apply our policies and penalties consistently, regardless of who uploads it. Okay. So anyways, that's what the old YouTube has got going on. The whole thing with that is that, of course, the election is fishy. I'll go into this one. This came out November 4th, the very next day after the election. Biden won more votes than any other presidential candidate in the history of America. Not fishy to anybody. Does anybody personally know somebody who actually voted for the guy? I don't personally know anybody. I see a sign here or there, but mostly it's for other Democratic candidates. No one's real happy about Biden. I don't know. So anyways, everything is broken the record for voter turnout. And it also says later on in the article here that President Trump actually also hit the record for voter turnout. How many people are we dreaming up? If President Trump neared the all-time high for election stats set by Obama, and then Biden outdoes him? What? So we have twice as many voters now as what we used to have in 2008? I don't know. I ain't saying fraud. YouTube will kick me off. Oh, no. I ain't saying fraud. And then, like I said, I think I said in another stream, the voter fraud thing is like, that goes back like decades upon decades upon decades. People have been rigging elections since the beginning of elections. It started becoming electronic with like Al Gore and Bush Jr. Okay. That's when, Al Gore's, it was either John Kerry or Al Gore's relative owned the voting machines. Come on. It was also proven how you can rig them in up against with Congress said, yeah, it's really easy to rig, really easy to tally, really hardly an inconvenience. And nobody reports on this stuff because they want to make sure that your elections are fair seemingly, but they also want to be able to rig them. Even if they don't really care what candidate goes in, but they want the people to be somewhat, 50-50. So if like Trump is winning by a landslide, so you got to fake a whole ton of votes. Whereas like Bush, Gore, I don't think anybody cared about either of them. Right. So you just got to bump a guy up a little bit, make it close to 50-50 so you can have that dichotomy we love so much. We got the left versus the right. Right. We can't have a third party or fourth or fifth or sixth or whatever. You're throwing your vote away. Throwing your vote away is just even using those electronic machines at all. If you actually think that voting means something, you go and you fill out a paper ballot. So someone has to hand count that. That way, if they throw it in the trash, that's on them, right? Otherwise, you punch buttons into the machine, and then someone just goes in there and says, no, we're flipping all those. You know, I mean, it's all electronic. They just run a script. Yeah. But now it's getting to the point, which is good, that, you know, people understand, you know, that now that their vote really doesn't count. There's no, I mean, it's a free couple hours off of work they have to pay you for, because they got to let you go vote, right? But they've been telling you. The 2020 election is on track to have the highest voter turnout rate among eligible citizens in over a century. People really, really cared. And they all voted Biden. Projected that 159.8 million Americans voted this cycle, which constitutes a 66.7% voter turnout rate among eligible citizens, surpassing the 65% set in 1908. Back when people actually had somewhat more of a legitimate deal going on and how they interact with the old mind control agency. Very interesting. Very interesting. We'll take a look at what else Drudge has going on here. For anyone who didn't see my video before, Jason called me in the afternoon and said that he is without internet. JCI Swing, or The Bill TV, is his channel. And so normally he does Bible studies up there with Phil, and he's not going to be around, obviously. He's got no internet. People who did not hear about that, take a look at chat quick. And then you notice that I had a very interesting picture of Trump with the Pope. And we'll get in that as we start talking about fraud a little bit. Before we get into just the news of the day on Drudge Report, which used to be kind of good a couple of years ago, but now it's all kind of taken over. Jack, how you doing? Max is not to be trusted. I'm controlled op. I'm totally controlled op. That's one strike for Jack. Two more, Jack. I'm going to have to remove you for spreading false claims. Critical mass, the media are enemies of the truth. Well, yes and no. And that if you know how to decipher it, you can actually find the truth. You're never going to get the whole story on anything, not unless you're actually a part of the conspiracy. You're never going to know the whole story, but you can kind of connect the dots. Like, for instance, YouTube now, everything that they just don't like, or it's a political thing, they're just going to say, well, anything that does not align with YouTube's company policy or whoever owns it, CIA / well, I guess it'd be Democrats now, but whoever owns it, they decide what's going to be censored, what propaganda is going to go out through the public, what's going to be promoted, and all of that. And YouTube, for a long time, anything that has to do with like natural health or anything like that, those people get axed immediately, because you can't have the big pharma, obviously, is a big part of YouTube. You can't have anyone doing natural health. Absolutely not. So therefore, you know that natural health is true. Okay. Anything, any vaccine gets removed from the net, scrubbed instantly. So therefore, you know that you need to look into vaccinations. Okay. Now they're saying they're going to scrub anything that has to do with voter fraud. Well, now you know that fraud existed, because now they're covering it up, because they're not very bright, guys. We'll talk a little bit about that too. You know, being scared of the New World Order coming and the technocracy, and oh, they're coming to get me and they're going to stick me in a camp and it's going to be a smart city. It's like, none of that's going to happen. The more garbage that they try and string together and rule through computers and all this stuff, you realize that's just as much of a weapon to be used against them. Okay. An over reliance on those technical things and not hands-on is a tremendous vulnerability. Tremendous. Why do you think we still have soldiers that go out in the field? They can't trust all that tech stuff, and you still have to have people to fix it all. You're not going to be run by any sort of smart cities, and no one's going to round you up and put you in camps. Who's going to do that? Where are they going to get the people to do that? Yeah, you're going to enslave your neighbor. I'm sure he's not going to have a grudge against you. Like, it's not going to happen. as far as that goes, they're setting up camps right now for like FEMA for people who don't have any money, don't have any food, and they're volunteering to go. And that's the way it will be going forward, depending on what happens with all of this stuff. Because this is crazy. It's like you got to march on the Capitol. This hasn't happened since the Civil War, and then before that, it happened in the Revolutionary War. So, or sort of quasi. I mean, I don't think it was a Capitol building then, but it was the same general thing, area. All those buildings are super ancient, by the way. But so you've got sort of the repeats of what you would call a civil war, but it's not really a civil war. It's just the people fighting the government, right? Or the bankers, the bankers run it, the Vatican, which is why I put up that picture. Okay, why I put up this picture. Where is my picture? This picture. Look at Trump with a little sly grin on him, and look at the Pope. He's not very happy. He is not happy at all. And you go through, you see, I just put in Trump visits Pope. Okay, all of these pictures, Mr. Pope man is not very happy. He looks like someone gave him some very bad news. Here this is with Pence. He's happy to see Pence. Someone put a little meme on there. But yeah, Pence, he's real happy. He's real wide-eyed to see Pence. And we all look at these ones here. This is not a happy man when he sees Trump. I wonder why that is. And now we're gonna look at Obama. Man, you can't keep the smiles off these guys' faces. They're just having a good gay old time, aren't they? Just a gay old time down there at the Vatican Play Mansion. Gay old time. Look at them smiles. Oh, look at the smiles here with the old Ratzinger guy. Yeah. You like this. Trump. I don't like this anymore. I don't like this guy. Oh, here he is. There he's got a little smile on him. That's the only one out of all of them. Otherwise, they all look like this. The old Pope's not happy with Trump. Very, very, very interesting. As we get into here's Pope's real happy about Biden getting elected. So this is a story that's, is very, very recent with some research behind it. Of course, everyone calls it fake. Votes manipulated in Rome. So the story out there is that the voting machines, of course, are all rigged to the internet because, you can't have people hand count them. We can't trust that. We need immediate results. So all of them are hooked to the internet so we can upload those results to a server in India. Germany. No, the embassy in Rome. Okay. This interesting story, it could be totally fake, but it's written by a guy here called Patrick Cooper. It's obvious an alias that goes to Bill Cooper. Okay, maybe Patrick Cooper's a real guy. But it sounds very plausible, and why the Pope looks so upset in all those pictures, because Trump is actually cleaning up some things that doesn't make into the news about some of these guys involved in their little acts. Okay? And you look in the comments, and Patrick Cooper is actually responding to people that are making up stories and calling him a wingnut or whatever. I will leave that into the chat. So that's the link to that article. I'll have to go back later and actually put it into the description for it. I'm not going to read it because it's highly, it's very speculative and it's just some guy says, but the Pope and his gay affair out there, and some of these other people who are getting called out and thrown out, and the stuff with Hunter Biden and all of that makes me, understand how the old Pope is not very happy to see Trump. And the thing about the collusion with China and the Ukraine and Biden, if you go to factcheck.org, I'm sure if anyone's ever heard of this thing going on with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Ukraine and China and all of this stuff where they're all doing these back alley deals, and Biden promises him $1 billion in aid, which he got, of course, because we passed our stimulus where, the people get a little bit of money, and then, foreign nations, here you go. Banksters, here you go. Who do we got to buy? The Ukrainians gave Trump and Giuliani like all the info and all the wire transfer information on all the money that's passing between Joe and yeah. So that's not a fact check org false story. That actually happened. And they have the stuff, which makes, the little play acting thing and the run on the White House and all this stuff, or not White House, the Capitol building, all even that much more interesting is like, what is going to come out of this? If this is all like a planned deal, what is the end goal out of this? Because for a while now, I don't think anything's going to be getting done anywhere. And, of course, you have the Q thing. You just wait. They're going to drain the swamp and all that. Well, if any of that comes to pass, there won't be anybody running the country anymore because they'll all be in jail or kicked out, right? I don't know. It's a very, I haven't spent a ton of time with this thing with the Pope. The Pope doesn't look very happy. It's interesting that it's Rome. The embassy in Rome is where they're trying to figure out how they can deal with the election. And the story, according to this person, is that because it was such a landslide for Trump, they had to turn off the tallying of the votes, which is why it took so long to tally They had to turn off the tallying of the votes so they could correct it and manufacture physical copies to match up with the records. So it's like, it's really easy to take 100,000 votes from one guy and give it to the other guy, apparently, without anyone really noticing. But when you only make up 10% of the ballot, so you have to come up with like 500,000 votes then to match the other guy's stuff, especially if they're written in ballots or optic ballots or absentee ballots where there's a paper copy. Now you have to come up with paper copies for all of these. And they have to be paper copies because how else are you going to justify them coming out of nowhere? And there's a whole thing in that, but the whole thing's very interesting. And like I said, it's like there must be some kind of a faction war as to who is going to be the big time on the Republican side, the Democrat side. Of course, they all work for the bankers, but there must be some real pull, some real money in there for the people that are in the controlling margin. Otherwise, why would they care so much? Why bother rigging it? Pick your guy and, rig it to your 50-50 and off you go. The other amazing thing too is that I had said this before is like, I'm glad Biden wins because then people will get off their butts, and not wait for Trump to do everything for them like he's some sort of savior. And I said, it'd be interesting if they turn everything over in the courts and all that, but apparently the courts threw all this stuff out. But what I didn't think that they would do was ever let the public know that their vote doesn't count, because that's pretty much the only thing holding the country together is if you think you can vote for somebody to make things better. If you know that you can't vote for somebody to make things better, everybody is going to be rioting, because until you like kick everybody out, you can't get anything done. And America is a big country with a lot of people and a lot of guns, and I think it was a huge mistake to make people or let people aware of the fact that there's a ton of voter fraud out there, so much so that you can't cover it up. That's why Al Gore conceded. He's essentially on record conceding and saying that he knows he wouldn't have won in a recount on those specific states that were using this particular type of voting machine, an electronic voting machine. Okay. He knows in a recount, he's like, yeah, I'll just concede. But it's like, But but Al, you're so close. He's like, nah, that's all right. I already know that's fine. He conceded because he knew he'd be found out a fraud. Okay. Um, and now like almost all of them are like that. All the machines are electronic, push button things, like you're checking out the grocery store or something. And it's ridiculous. That's just going off into the ether. One guy can change all of the votes in America on a whim. Okay. So that's what we got. And people figured it out and decided to do something about it. I'm gonna hard to fault them. And I don't know a ton, haven't looked into it a bunch, but it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of psyop in that. There was just too many people. Some of the people caught on film running around the White House and stuff, or the Capitol building, sure. But the people as a whole were there to see Trump's speech, and there are people from all over the country. And I think a lot of that was organic. Also in the fact that nothing was really broken or busted or, some broken windows, big deal. And that was a lot of people. A lot of people. It's good to see people, doing stuff. Every Capitol building like locked down, and they're going off to other Capitol buildings all across the country. But never fear. At least YouTube is going to keep you safe on YouTube, where you don't get to hear about any sort of theories that go anywhere away from, Biden is just a wonderful human being. Always had every American's back. He just loves black people. He did not say that America is doomed because of black people. He did not. He said America is doomed not only because of the black people. There's a difference. Yeah. So yeah, I guess he's not bad when he remembers where he is. Yeah, that's why, the reason I bring up the thing with the Vatican is that I just heard that either this morning or last night, about the idea that the stuff comes from a particular group over here and it goes through it went through servers in Germany and ended up at the Vatican embassy, or embassy to the Vatican, or Rome, they say, but Vatican basically. And it's like, well, yeah, the Jesuits kind of run a lot of the world. It lines up. I could believe that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just reporting on the news. I am but a humble reporter giving critical analysis, or as the Pope would say, analyst, nailist in his gay palace. All right. Fake controlled events. Kevin H says people involved in March were not carrying helmets and protective gear. I mean, yeah, it looked pretty organic to me. I don't know. They didn't show up with like spray paint, and there wasn't like in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, it was so staged that they actually had pallets soaked with gasoline and gas cans sitting in the Target parking lot, waiting for the bus with the protesters to show up to light them on fire. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is, guys. That is. And then, of course, the news is all over it. Oh, the horrors of Black Floyd being, killed by the police and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it looked to me like they did not expect and think it would go as far as what it did, to where the people around here protesting dislike the media so much that anywhere that there was a camera, they were like smashing them, like pushing them over and telling the media to go. So, they weren't very warm welcomed. And of course, the turn is on that there's like super violent and everything. Is like, no, they just didn't want to be filmed. And it's interesting. The fallout from that is like when the president, you see right here, the first line on Drudge Report now, federal prosecutor doesn't rule out charging Trump for inciting a riot. The guy's the president of the United States, and those are the constituents, the people of the United States. Wouldn't they be ignoring a command if Trump just said, go get them? I mean, it doesn't matter if Trump doesn't have the power and authority to make your average dude go do anything. But even if he makes the suggestion, that's not inciting a riot when it comes from the president of the United States. That's the elected leader who you're supposed to follow. If he says Joe Biden stole the election, it's obvious, go let him know what you think, and everybody goes down there, that's not inciting a riot. Okay, that's following your leader, the person who was elected by them. So that's funny. My guess is the federal prosecutor won't have a job if Trump gets back in. You never know. So what else do we have here? We're talking about 25th Amendment to throw Trump out of office for his last 2 weeks. They're so scared of this guy. It's another reason I brought the Pope thing in. Because if Trump actually is going after pedophiles and sodomites and all this stuff and all the corruption and the filth, and it looks like this is happening and he has like the people's support in doing this stuff, there isn't anything he can't do at this point. If the people that are following Trump are going to run to the Capitol building and storm it, then he can do whatever he wants. Okay. Because more and more people are going to join in now. I mean, this is why I don't think it was staged, because there is no positive that comes from that from their perspective. It literally shows how weak the government is. They'd like you to believe that they have super weapons and they can have special forces at your door and all this stuff in 24 hours. And no, they can't. Their own Capitol building in the middle of the afternoon got stormed by regular unarmed people. Nothing they could do about it. Where's your army? Where's your National Guard? Where's your stuff? Oh, they showed up later, 4 hours, 5 hours later, after they rolled out of bed. I mean, the military down there is, whatever. They got nothing, is the point. You can bring all them people that you want to, and unless they're coming from like some other country or something like that, these people are fighting their own brothers and sisters, neighbors and cousins and everything else. You're going to bring the National Guard in? So a lot of those guys are Republicans. What are they going to do? So you see how limp and weak the government really is. All right. And I don't see a benefit as to why they would ever let that hand tip to show how weak they really are. And that's why people can dismiss these ideas of being rounded up and thrown in a camp. A group of people, unarmed people, stormed the Capitol building. And you're worried about being rounded up and put in a camp? No. White House aides consider resignations, removal options as Trump rages against perceived betrayals. Perceived betrayals. Oh, this is interesting. Perceived betrayals. President Donald Trump was ensconced in the White House residence Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, raging about perceived betrayals as an array of top aides, Wade resigning, and some senior administration officials began conversation about invoking the 25th Amendment, an extraordinary measure that would remove the president before Trump's term ends January 20th. So here's interesting. I mean, they're, of course, going to put their spin on it. Their spin is that the guy's a tyrant and the guy's crazy. But you look at this as like Donald Trump hired these people and they are resigning because they see Trump is doing something that they know that Trump is obviously going after people while he is still in power. And these people are scared and they want to get him out to get his power away. Well, what's he going to do? He hasn't done anything really yet, at least not to the people. Well, he spent $18 trillion of people's money, but he didn't directly punch me in the face. Right. So it's interesting. What's going on in his administration and his cabinet where these people are now very scared? Very scared. Did they make some deals about maybe going over to the Biden administration, or cut some deals as to when they get out? They got a good place to go, do you think? Do you think? I'm just starting to think of what situation would if I was working for somebody, where I would resign as opposed to wait 2 weeks. I try and get my boss thrown out even though he's leaving in 2 weeks, or else I'd resign. Trying to think of a situation that would happen, especially in like a really cushy job, like being an administrator for the president. Huh. Maybe up to some shenanigans they weren't supposed to be, maybe. I'm just speculating. I'm just reading the news. Can't fault me for that. Oh. Now they're saying there's a rift between Pence and yeah, here I wonder if it'll show this picture. No, it won't show the picture. Of course, the picture that's everywhere is the guy who's dressed up like a bull. And this same thing is from The Simpsons, or something similar to it was in The Simpsons. And it's like, is it a psyop? I mean, or is it a guy who picked a character in The Simpsons specifically because of that? Which is possible too. Just kind of an interesting thing. He's dressed in his little bull uniform there. Let's see what we got going on in chat. Hi to anybody new. Looks like we got 19 watching. We're just going over the news, guys. Anyone who's showing up. In case you missed it, YouTube announces they're banning anybody who says there was any kind of fraud involved at all with the 2020 election. That's their new terms and use conditions. So just bring everybody up to speed a little bit. Everybody up to speed. See what else we're going to talk about here. Proud Boys ready for more. MAGA protest planned for today as Proud Boys won't back down. Boasts of politicians in terror. Militia group, Proud Boys. Oh, all right. Well, I mean, that's good. They're doing their job finally. Where were these guys like the last 4 years? They're waiting for Trump to do everything until, Trump's almost out and they're going to do stuff. Who shows up to a rally with a gas mask? Guy's not one of the protesters, me thinking. He's got a military grade helmet and an Israeli gas mask and bear mace. Something tells me he didn't show up with the rest of the people. And the regular people, they're wearing masks. They believe the COVID. Interesting. Well, it's good that the militia's getting up and doing something. Guns out, windows smashed. Trump crowd turns Congress into a battlefield. This is a battlefield. All the statues are still standing. Nothing is damaged. There's no spray paint anywhere. It looks pretty intact. I wouldn't call it a battlefield, but that's the left. This is Yahoo. Oh, terrible. Tense officers pointing guns, lawmakers with gas masks, camouflage protesters smashing windows. This was a day that President Donald Trump bid to overturn the U.S. election went wild. President Trump's bid to overturn the election. That's what did happen, is that storming apparently stopped them from certifying the votes for these different states. And news on that, there was so much shenanigans involved in all of that even California has decided to investigate Biden's win in California. So now it's serious when lefty California has decided to actually not go with Satan and say that, okay, we probably should do something about this now. And if they actually do fix their election system in California, my prediction is Nancy Pelosi will never, ever be elected for anything ever again. She won't even be a dog catcher. Not that it matters. I mean, she, went in with like $30,000 into Congress and comes out, hundreds of millions of dollars. But, that's how it rolls, man. I wonder why people are storming the Capitol. I just don't know. I just don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about all this stuff? My opinion is like, you're voting for a guy, the puppet of the banks. Which puppet do you like better? However, some things are worth fighting for, and it's nice. It's good to make a statement, make a statement about things to where you get oppressed enough and then you make a big pushback, and then they're scared to say, we're going to lock you down. Then they're scared to say, you got to wear a mask. Then they're scared to try and close your place down because you had people storming the Capitol again while the people were there, while all the senators and representatives were in session. They were there. They evacuated them out to an underground tunnel off to a military base and off to the airports. It's a pretty big deal. Like I said, the government's got no power. They can flip some switches. And if you give them like a couple of days, they can get some people down there to try and take care of you and handle you. But people that just decide, hey, we're going to meet right here at such and such time, and nobody discusses anything, and at that such and such time, you've got, a few thousand people, they can't stop that. And that's minuscule amounts of people. Minuscule. Out of 350 million? That's why I can't believe that people have put up with so much until now. And it's like, finally, now that you think that Joe Biden's going to get elected, people are finally going to do something. I'll go back to my words in like November 5th or something when I said, good, Joe Biden's in. Now people can go back to work. Last Civil War widow dies. Interesting. Synchronicity. Way down at the bottom of the list, USA sets new record for deadly virus deaths. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Oh, the humanity of our fake virus we pretend is killing people. Oh, look at Bubble Boy. Isn't that terrible? That's not the guy who took the picture is not wearing anything, by the way. We've seen it many, many a times where your news reporter's got the mask up and the whole Bubble Boy outfit on, and the guy behind the camera says his headset on smoking a cigarette. It's a fraud and a sham. Don't participate. I think it's interesting that they want to cover this, and they say a couple 100,000 people have died so far, and it's like, yeah, well, it's been a year. We lose a few thousand people a day. You know what the number one thing people die of in the world? Abortion. What about them? Why don't you report on that? Oh, no. Oh, no. Grandpa, 85 years old, died in the nursing home of COVID because nobody loved him and left him in the nursing home for the demons in the medical industry to take care of. It makes sure to die. There's a civil war, all right. The civil war has been going on against the black people for a long time and against old people right now to try and kill as many of them as possible. And, how much of a civil war? Well, if you call government versus the people a civil war, but that's what it is, bankster versus the people. It's not like me in Minnesota fighting some guy in Wisconsin. It's fighting air. A stack of papers called the United States of America, founded out of like Colombia. The fake government put in 1865 or something. What else do we got in the news? Oh, all the news is about the riots. I did get a kick out of this one, though. Elon Musk is going to be the richest man in the world. And it's like what's going on in the stock markets. I had mentioned about cryptocurrencies and things where if you put your money, the whatever they give you, 1,200 bucks before, if you put that into Bitcoin, it'd be worth like 6 grand right now. Okay. And I found out why that is and why Bitcoin and the price is going up. And I found out a lot of the inside scoop on these things. But first, I want to talk about like the stock market in general. If anyone's any familiars with that, everybody is debt trading and nobody needs to make any money anymore. It's all just in how much revenue and how much you sell and how fast you can turn over product and what sort of ideas that you have that you can try and, right now there's like negative interest loans, crazy things. So you can take out billions of dollars and there's no interest. So how much collateral do you need for that? Like, so old Elon Musk is best known for Tesla, who Tesla apparently his Tesla company is worth something like $600 billion or something, which is more than GM, Ford, Toyota, all other car manufacturers combined. And Tesla makes 2% of the cars in the world. But he's worth more than all of them, to the point where he could buy like every other car company out and every car could be a Tesla. Now, what has he done to deserve that sort of rate for money? Nothing. It's all fraud. It's all scam. All scam. Now, this leads back to Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but primarily Bitcoin is the one I know about here that adjusts itself to inflation because it doesn't inflate. Bitcoin is limited in that there will only ever be so much Bitcoin. It actually, there's less and less and less and less and less availability of things like Bitcoin going on into the future. And it is the only commodity right now that is like that as far as money wise. I don't know if you consider a commodity or if you consider it currency, but it's a supply and demand issue. Also, Bitcoin, no matter what, they can't ever take it away from you. You can't be taxed on it. You can't do anything until you convert it into fiat currency to use. You can actually just buy stuff with Bitcoin too, though. But until you convert it into fiat, it's yours. No one can touch it. And it's a limited resource. And like they can't just decide we're going to create more Bitcoin. It works on an algorithm system that as you add more and more Bitcoin, it becomes harder and harder and harder to mine Bitcoin to the point where it's basically unattainable until computing power moves up to the point where you could actually make a Bitcoin. And by then it wouldn't be cost effective to do it. And so that's where that's at. And what it turns out is like the dollar inflation, President Trump just inflated the currency by 30%. Okay. The extra stimulus loan or whatever, they printed 30%. There's more money that got printed just recently now. There's more dollars now in the country just printed than all of the money that's ever been printed before in the history of the United States. Just got printed this year or last year, technically, but whatever, you know what I mean? So because of that, obviously you're going to cause an inflation to prices because when they want money, they just print it up. Print it up, print it up, print it up, unlimited supply. That means that there's supply and demand doesn't work because there's unlimited supply. So whereas something like crypto, Bitcoin in particular, and some other cryptos are locked into how much is going to be available. And Bitcoin in particular is actually getting more scarce. So that's why it's going up so much. So if they want to inflate the US currency by 30%, Bitcoin will go up 30%. The buying power might still be the same. But as more and more people understand what things like cryptocurrencies are, more and more people are going to get on the bandwagon and invest, and the investments will go higher and higher. Just something for people to look into, especially if you're in the stock market. Probably would go over to look at some cryptos and get involved in that. Especially, I don't personally think the dollar is ever going to completely fail. I don't think that they can reasonably do that without going to a digital currency first. But there's nothing wrong with diversifying. And right now the market is really good. I will say though, that with Bitcoin is really high right now. And so I can't give financial advice, which is another thing every YouTuber has to say. So Bitcoin is really high right now. So if you get it when it's down. I think it's at like almost $40,000. And when I was first looking into crypto in like middle of the summertime, it was $10,000. So it's just been up and up and up and up and up. And there's always a correction in every market. It doesn't just go up forever. There's always a point where it goes up and then it drops off. Where people are done investing up to a certain price point and they have automatic cutoffs, and then people stop buying. Price drops because there's no more demand. And then once it hits a certain area, everybody's buy orders go through and then the price increases. Happens all the time. And right now, Bitcoin's at 40 grand, but it hit 30 and the price didn't correct. It's still going up and up and up. It didn't, you figure at 30 grand, it could correct back down to 20. And then over the next couple of weeks, go back up to 30, and it hasn't done that. So I don't know. The market is wacky, man. But if you don't need to do anything with that $600 they just gave you, I consider, getting the old Coinbase going or get on an exchange and seeing what kind of crypto stuff is out there. So anyway, Elon Musk and his fake money says that he's the richest guy in the world because he owns a car company that doesn't make cars. Can you imagine that? As opposed to Jeff Bezos, where you can actually recognize every other day or once a week, whenever your Amazon packages show up, you can look at it and go, Jeff Bezos. When does anyone ever come in contact with a Tesla? I don't even see him driving around anymore. These fake actor clowns, man. Fake actor clowns. Anyways, we'll take a look at chat here, and I do want to play a video by Curtis Stone. He is the urban farmer, and he mirrors my sentiment and the things I've been saying all along. This is another perspective of it. He's from Canada, and he is a self-proclaimed liberal up until fairly recently, and he never had much money, but he really liked gardening. So he would lease the backyards of people in the city, and he would start growing microgreens in people's backyards and sell to co-ops and restaurants and grocery stores and things like that. And now the guy's a millionaire, and he's also done some other things, but he's making some comments on what's going on the old storm in the Capitol front. Got people going crazy in chat, or are we all right? Michael A., how's it going? Frustrated majority. You're willing to bet 99% of us would rather get 4 more years of Trump? Well, here's the thing is, from what I am hearing in the articles that are, of course, conspiracy or whatever, was that he won by such a landslide that in order to do voter fraud, it would be blatantly obvious that it was fraudulent. And that's what I'd figure. I mean, who is going to vote against a guy who gave everybody $1,200 for nothing? And even if you decided not to go to work for any reason at all, he'd give you $600 a week on top of your regular unemployment. Who is going to vote against that? Nobody. So there you go. Looking back at what he has done so far, I'm not a huge fan of the guy. And you could say, a lot of people say, well, he's waiting for his second term where he can really, go to town. And it's like, well, this is what happens when you do that. You wait to your second term. There's no guarantee of a second term. He knows about election fraud. He's not dumb. They all know how to play the game. And, whether the whole thing is orchestrated or not, it's hard to tell, but probably. I don't know. Like I said, it kind of doesn't really, the only reason it would really ever matter is because maybe if Trump really was going to take out some people. But I don't even really buy that because they didn't go after Bill Clinton for anything. I mean, and he's a real piece of work, we'll just say. Aaron says Biden is a thief and he and his comrades stole the election. Well, it's probably the Democratic Party. I mean, I think Biden's a little too old and too senile and to really orchestrate much. Sure, he has his good moments, but I didn't think that they'd want to have that guy up there as the president because he doesn't seem like he knows what's going on, and he might actually let some things slip, like when he says we're doomed because of the black people in America. I mean, that's how he really feels. That's not a slip of the tongue. That was a Zoom call between him and Kamala Harris and some other people around there. So that's not a slip of the tongue. Internet. He was giving an interview with a black guy who runs a YouTube channel or something that has to do with politics, and he was interviewing Joe Biden. And Joe asked, someone asked, the guy said, "I don't know who I'm voting for yet," as Joe's running, and Joe's like, "Come on, man. Come on, man. You always vote for us. Come on, man." Like the guy wasn't even a person who was interviewing him. He was just a black guy who always votes Democrat. And he goes, "Come on, man." That's Joe Biden. That was the same interview, I think, where he wanted to talk about corn pop. Apparently, the one black guy that he knew, he said his name was, he went by Corn Pop. So anyway, he hears that reference, that's where it comes from. It was really disgraceful. And that was the best that they had. And, I guess maybe if the plan was to put in Kamala Harris, but nobody likes her. I mean, if Biden went in there and had Hillary as a running mate, maybe, but she dropped out right away in the primary because nobody voted for her. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting year. I'll say that. Biden makes me laugh. Biden makes me laugh too. He's very cringe though. Jesuits created communism. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean, the system doesn't really matter. It's the people in it. But communism I see as bad just because there's no incentive to do anything creative. Like right now, America is very communist. And the reason that people will put up with the masks and put up with whatever else is they can say, "Oh, I voted for Trump to do this, so you can go do it." And people are all in debt and they don't want to ruffle any feathers or get in trouble for anything because there is no benefit. They don't see any benefit to stepping on a line and telling the guy at your local Walmart, "No, I'm not going to wear a mask." Right? All they see is a negative outcome. They will be banned from Walmart. That's the outcome that people perceive in their minds. And therefore there's no reason to step out of line. There's no point in rising above and doing the best at your job or anything like that because the pay is the same. Everybody knows that you work with people that don't do any work. Okay. Everybody's worked those jobs. There's people there that don't do anything. And you're like, why aren't these people fired? They don't show up half the time. And then you're late a couple of times and then you get a talking to and you're like, what's the deal here? I'm doing a great job. I'm here all the time. And this jackass never wants to show up, drops all their shifts. What's the deal? People complain about them nonstop and they're still here. Oh, well, we've told HR, right? Because the computer system decides that stuff. Okay. I mean, the truth behind why all that is all because of demographics and how much money they can get from the government. So depending on what demographic that you are in a place, you're never going to get fired because your wages are paid for by the state. So the people who do good jobs and the people who are actually care about what their work, they catch all the flack. Those are the people that are expendable. Because they look at you like, hey, we can just find another one of you people who work This person over here is free money. And you don't like to say diversity hire. Okay. Apparently that would be whatever, alt-right hater. Okay. But in 2008, that's exactly what it was when I was involved in that stuff. 2008. I don't know what you're like there now. But every time you fill out an application for a big enough company, they always want to know whether or not you've been on assistance recently, or maybe you're on unemployment, or maybe you might be a non-white character. Maybe. Why do they want to know that information? Why is it crucially important that they know that information about you? That's why people can get away not doing nothing. But that's communism. And then eventually it wears down to the people who work really hard and really care about their job. It wears them down enough to where like, well, I ain't doing nothing either. And before you know it, you have a whole country full of people who don't want to do anything. And then you end up with universal basic income, $600 a month, $1,200 a month. There you go. Order your stuff from Bezos, pop on your Netflix, put in your Xbox game, wait for the next check. Vote in the election. Ha 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 ha. All right. All right. So I'm going to play Dude Man here. Does it not actually have the controls?
Regarding what's going on in the US, I don't really think it matters. That's why I titled this as I did. I'm just going to hit record on this.
Can people hear that? I think I checked the box that said to play my desktop background. Can you guys hear that? Critical mass.
All right. Welcome, folks. I can see people trickling in. I'll let you do that. The reason I titled today's episode, "You Are the One You've Been Waiting For All Along," is because I believe that's the truth. I believe that it doesn't matter what happens in politics. In fact, depending on what side of the fence you're on, I'm assuming most people who watch me, I've probably filtered out a lot of the haters. And so I'm assuming most people that watch me have kind of jumped ship if they think that I'm like a tinfoil hat guy. And so I'm going to speak to people who I assume are on the same page. But so in that, you could assume that there's two really bad outcomes, or sort of one bad outcome with what's going on in the US. And that is if Biden wins, which it looks like that might happen now. But I actually think that's a good thing in that I think most people have wasted, who have kind of been along this thinking that, okay, yeah, Trump is part of some sort of return to the republic, and there's going to be justice for all these sex traffickers and all these deep state operatives and all that. I think the fact that if Biden wins, it's good in that now there's no more excuses. Now there's no more sitting on the sidelines, trusting the plan and hoping that some government agency or politician is going to save you, which is not going to be the case. It's not. None of that matters. You are the one that can change this whole thing, and that means that people who don't want to participate in this commercialized, compartmentalized, corporatized, commodified system based on the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, the beast system, as I call it, and many others call it. You need to get your shit together. And I think that's the big thing here. And so to be perfectly honest, I do care a little bit about what happens in the US. However, that's only because I've been indoctrinated with politics and thinking that there's some kind of remedy in the political system for my entire life. And I've had to unwind that for many years, and I still am. And so, sure, I hope that there is some kind of restructuring of the republic, and that Trump is some savior from the deep state and all this sex trafficking sickness and beast system. But I don't realistically think that that's going to happen. I think this is the end times, and the end times are the beginning of something new. So I'm optimistic. The Great Reset, all this stuff. I see people talking about this in the chat. They're going to try all this stuff, but I don't think it's going to work. I think the big good that's going to come out of this if Biden wins is that it's going to mobilize the people that are more the liberty-minded folks, those who reject the New World Order, those that reject the Great Reset. It'll mobilize them to finally get off this bullshit of trusting the plan and sitting on the sidelines while eating popcorn, watching the show play out. That's just lame. I'm sorry. It's just lame. Sure, I wish all that stuff was true, but you know what? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do, because this is a time, I believe, in 2021, is accountability, responsibility, regeneration, and renewal. And that's what those that believe in a regenerative world, what we have to do. We have to take account. We have to be accountable to ourselves and realize that we're actually responsible for everything that's happened. We can't just blame it all on politicians. The reason we're responsible is because too many of us have not participated in the system. And usually that's done through tacit agreement or acquiescence. Most people either do one or two of those things or both of those things. Actually, most people probably do both of those things. They acquiesce every time the government does some new ridiculous restriction, such as lockdowns, all kinds of curfews now. Even Quebec in Canada has got a provincial-wide curfew. It's tyranny. It's tyranny. And what we're seeing now is a lot more heavy-handed than what we've seen in the past, but we've seen these things before, and we continually acquiesce. Or we go by through a tacit agreement. So government sends you something and it says, if you don't respond within 21 days or whatever, this is what happens. This will be the course of action. This has happened throughout our life, through all the adhesion contracts that we've been signed on to and all this nonsense. All this government UCC beast system has done this to us. And it's done it because we've been compartmentalized, commodified, and commercialized. And I always use those to describe, but the compartmentalization is like we're all in these little corners fighting for this little thing that we've been pushed into, this little corner we've been barricaded into or enclosed into. And we let all this stuff go by. So it's time that we accept responsibility and we take accountability for everything that's happened. And that's realizing that we've all been responsible for where we are. All this stuff where we have this corporatocracy, this plutocracy, now a new technocracy that is controlling the world. We're all responsible for that because we've let it happen. And we've let it happen through acquiescence and tacit agreement. And so it's time to take responsibility for that and realize that all of us can change this, but it isn't until you step up and participate in remedy. And that remedy can be just for yourself, your family, or you can extend that out as far as you like. But the key is that you participate in the remedy. It is no longer this whole thing of just sitting on the sidelines. And that's the one thing that has really annoyed me in the truther movement. And I'm going to get to my questions here in a minute, guys. I just like to ramble while people are trickling into this live stream. It's the one thing that's really annoyed me in the truther movement over the last 4 years is this whole QAnon thing, is this trust the plan bullshit. Yeah, sit on the sidelines and just watch it all play out. Like, where is any sort of, how is there any sort of spiritual or deep redemption in that kind of a statement? Trust the plan, just sit by and watch television, like that has done anything positive for us? Just sit back and watch the media and watch it all play out, whether you believe anything the media says or you don't. This whole idea of sitting back, this is bullshit. This is not what creators were put on this earth to do. We were put here to create. And creation doesn't come from sitting back and watching something play out. It comes from you participating in the creation. And that's what is just, I find so abominable about a lot of the people that I agree with a lot of what they say. I do agree with the general sentiment from the Q type folks that have really wanted to call out the deep state, the corruption, the corporatization, the child trafficking, all that sick shit that has done a lot of bad on the planet and to a lot of men and women. I agree with the sentiment. I just can't stand this whole thing of sit back and watch it all play out. It's just so lame. It's so lazy, so unaccountable. And it is so paradoxical to what actually people who believe in a regenerative world should be part of. And if we believe in regeneration, if we believe in a lot of the principles of permaculture, then you need to take responsibility and step up and do something. And so what am I doing? Well, I'm doing a lot.
So that's Curtis Stone. I just took a snippet of his live stream that he did today, and I didn't link the stream because he only does those. Here we are. He only does these streams and immediately puts them up to a pay site. It's like the one Owen Benjamin does to I can't even remember what it is, but they have their own things where they host their own videos so that they can get around the YouTube policing policy. And of course, Curtis Stone runs a business as urban farmer. He does farming and gardening. He's also, has his political ideas, and he also knows that people and persons and the entire takeover of really the world is all based around the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the law of the sea, which is you're not a man or a woman, you're a person, and you're a corporate identity. So like things like the Constitution don't apply to corporations, right? So if you associate yourself with that, this is why all this tyranny goes on, because people are volunteering for it and they're saying, yes, I am corporation so-and-so, and therefore you're treated as a corporation, not as a living human being. And that's where a lot of the stuff comes from. And he's, they have it worse in that regard in Britain, because they didn't have a revolution. They didn't get to start their own country, and they don't have a constitution or anything. But that's how they run things. And he does that. And if you subscribe to his channel, you'll get notified for when he goes live. And then when he goes live, he leaves it up for like an hour or two, so you can check it out when he talks about what's called the Liberty on the Land broadcast. Also, if you go to library, I'll put mine on there. Odyssey. Library is like the format that it's in, but Odyssey.com has most of the people that have been kicked off of YouTube have their stuff backed up there. It automatically backs up your channel. Apparently you have to have like at least a certain number of subscribers before it will allow you to do it. I think it's like 1,000 or something, because one of my channels, my Just Plain Science won't back up, but mostly you're going to be on there, and it's impossible. Your videos are impossible to take down once they're up. So it's kind of you got to be real sure about what goes up there. But he's also on BitChute, his Liberty on the Land podcast. Those are a specific one to about finding remedy and navigating the seas of the Universal Commercial Code. And there's many reasons of why I say it like that, but that's who he is and what he does. Pretty smart guy who's been through the lefty liberal scene, the hippie scene, the beatnik guitarist, vegan, whatever scene, and kind of came around to where he is today. And yeah, a real bright guy. And, you know, I very much mirror exactly what he just said. And it's, you know, couldn't have said it better myself, even though I did. But yeah, you know, and you know, there's probably some other people out there. I don't know. A lot of people are coming out talking about this stuff, but of course, anything that's too good or too out there gets immediately quashed. As far as when I was talking about cryptocurrencies earlier and investments, a lot of the people that are into crypto now, there are a couple of guys that I listen to, but there's a lot of garbage out there. And probably one of the best ones as far as who knows what's going on and kind of talks a little bit about crypto, but not really. It's more just when people get enough money, they don't care about the cryptocurrencies anymore. And they just want to talk about the way things work because who can stop them? They're already millionaires. And that's going to be Jeff Berwick, who is the dollar vigilante. See him on BitChute, Odyssey, of course, kicked off of YouTube. Max Kaiser is a guy who is heavily involved in, he bought Bitcoin when it was $1. Okay. And he owns probably hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is going for $40,000 a piece. So Max Kaiser is easily billionaire, and he still does stuff for fun. And he was a guy who invented several things and was one of the founders of manipulating the stock markets. So, you know, those are some things to check out for some good info, as for like things that are more realistic than like prepping for digging your bunker and storing your food. You know, I mean, that's, so I guess if you like doing that, I'd rather try and make some fiat money and figure out a way around how to navigate without too many problems in our coming future, you know. And like I said, this, you know, they want to bring in a technocracy. They want to bring in universal basic income, and they want to bring in all of these systems. And people think that because it's written up in a paper that that's definitely what's coming. And it's like, well, that's what their hopes and dreams are. But all of those things are a two-edged sword. You know, you want to put in a thing where you have your government authoritative crypto or whatever the Federal Reserve wants to do. They've already passed the bill on that for Federal Reserve crypto bank accounts. And if they want to go to some kind of money like that, digital currency, it's just going to open up a black market all over the place. I mean, there's already a dark web. And you want to give internet IDs and all this stuff. And it's like, well, VPNs exist. I mean, technology to defeat the government comes out before the government can implement a technology. That's how fast it works, because people are the innovators, not the government. The government's really slow, right? So always, any sort of technocracy, we're always going to be way ahead of the curve on that stuff. All right. And as far as civil war goes, I said that, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, lock people in their houses. Say you've got people that are rushing the capitals all across the country. Only thing they can do is say, stay in your houses. And it's like, we're already rushing the capital. Why would we stay in our house? And so you bring in the National Guard and have a military presence. Okay, well, now we're all in our houses clicking away on the keyboards as to what our next plan is. You know, I mean, government doesn't move that fast. They're not very scary. But honestly, it's more important to get your own stuff straight and to go do something positive and do something and build something than it is to fight the system and fight the man and all this stuff. You know, make sure your community and your area is in order, and don't worry about what's going on in Washington. You know, being part of a protest and demonstration because of the voting thing, I think is probably a good thing. Right. But, you know, some of these guys are kind of wingnuts, and they've been waiting their whole life to be able to take them guns out, you know, and go after the deep state and all this stuff, like Alex Jones. What a Looney Tune, you know. And you don't want to be in that crowd. That's what I think about that. But, you know, maybe I'm just too, maybe I just haven't been through enough pain with the old, the whole mask thing, you got to understand too, is people are like pretty crazy and being locked up for a year. Their business is being shut down. Everyone's losing money. They can't kick people out when they're renting. They own buildings and rent to people that decided they're not going to pay rent anymore because they don't have to. And all of these things, and people are really high strung, and you don't want to get involved in some sort of movement that's going to have some negative reactions. Put your efforts into more positive things. I don't know. That's about really all I had. I know there was something else I wanted to bring up, but space mission. What do we think? We think Trump's a certifiable crazy person? Is everyone here a Trump supporter? We all ardent Republican Republicrats? Is that what we are? Republicrat? Kevin H says, talking about Trump, that there's been no wars under Trump. And it's like, yeah, that's the best you got. You didn't lead America to war. I mean, I guess it's something. Wasn't fighting a war for the banksters. I think we're kind of past the war thing, though, because nobody is going to go do that. Everybody's too lazy. At least not in America. We're not going to do that. Firing up the Civil War sort of thing. It's like, yeah, sure. But that would be one that right now, today, in this day and age, the government has no chance of winning. Like the Civil War one, you're talking about guys with like hunting rifles and no money, and Indians with bows and arrows, versus the most advanced military the world has ever seen, fueled by unlimited money of the banks in the original Civil War. And a whole ton, half of the entire Northern Army was mercenaries. So you're talking about a civil war now with like the American people versus the government like it was back then. They got no chance. I don't care how many people you bring over from China or Russia or wherever. They have no chance. None. So, I think that that's off the table. I think that any sort of a civil war thing is completely off the table. Yeah. There apparently was some sort of thing about posse comitatus and about how it was a big deal that President Trump ordered people to disperse and they wouldn't. And apparently that gets him by posse comitatus. I don't know. Here's what my thing is on that is if Trump stays in, because if he actually pulls the trigger and sends a lot of these congressmen away and pushes charges on a lot of these people, they probably would have to do a new election because there wouldn't be enough people to ratify the votes for electing a president. So you'd have to do a new election. And if Trump stays in through all of that, he is going to continue being the worst president that we've ever had, with more social programs, more garbage. And that's how it is. The guy's kind of been a Judas goat. And I don't understand why people love him so much, other than that, he's really entertaining. But you look at what he's done, what he's actually done, and what he's actually fought for. I mean, you look at the whole COVID thing with the masks and everything being shut down, businesses being shut down. Well, that's Trump's initiative. Trump did that. Trump has financial incentives for people to put you through all sorts of grief and label everybody COVID. He mocks that hospitals, label everybody COVID because they get 30 grand. Well, Trump, you approve that. Okay. So, it's politics. It's just politics. Like I said, who's going to vote for the best puppet? Dom Houston never got into politics, but Republican and Democrats have their own agendas and don't care about the people. Well, that's what people have thought. That's the narrative, right? Is that everybody knows they don't give a crap about the people. And the lefty idea is that, oh yeah, well, it's free money for everybody and welfare for everybody, and the Dems will take care of us, and then they'll go after the rich people to pay for everything. That's the Democrats. And then you got the Republicans, who are supposed to be the guys who are fiscally conservative and not want to pay for anything, and everyone should have to pay their own way. That's the two sides. Which looks like it's like the left is mommy and the right is daddy. And that's the way that they're supposed to be perceived, but that's not really the way that it is. They're both exactly the same. Okay. There isn't any difference in what they do. If you ask me, a lot more liberal policies will get passed under Republicans, and they always do. You look at like the National Security Act from 2001 or whatever, and you've got this $18 trillion that Trump signed on to, and you've got all these things that goes completely against who their persona is. They're all Judas. They're all Judas goats. Okay. They're all phonies. And I prefer Biden being in there just for the simple fact that people can't just say it's part of the plan that Biden's in there. It's part of the plan. I don't have to do anything, you know? Although Trump is entertaining, but I don't think he's going to go away. I don't think that Trump is done. You know, I mean, he's been running for president since like 1980. And he didn't just go away when he lost. He keeps coming back. I'm sure after he gets done with the presidency, he'll have even more fun going out and talking about things. Go pressure the Pope at his little gay palace. And, you know, yeah. Hasn't played the Trump card yet. That's right, Bunny Lynn. Hasn't paid the Trump card. Who's the last? Yep. So that's what we have for this day in news. If we ain't got any questions or exciting things to link me, like I said, I played the thing here from Urban Farmer. If you scroll up, I linked his channel. His live stream videos called Liberty on the Land. He does them live on YouTube. And if you don't catch them, they kind of go off to BitChute, or they go off to not DLive, some other sort of a site. I don't know. And of course, Dollar Vigilante. And back to the news thing, you know, of course, YouTube, you can't, if YouTube is against anything and gives you a check for anything, it means you're down the right path. And it's the same thing with the news. When you look at these articles and think, see, Trump is certifiable, that means he's probably telling the truth, right? It's always an inversion. So that's usually how you can find the truth in things. And like a lot of this stuff doesn't matter to do any deep digging. It's kind of like, look at it like a hobby or sort of like an interest, but don't get emotionally involved in this stuff. All right. That's by design, to control your mind, to get emotionally involved and all. Oh, I just can't believe it. And it's not a good place to be. You know, this is your television, right? This is the entertainment. Is these things that are supposedly real with these puppet shows with the mommy and daddy, lefty, righty, you know, this puppet show, that's entertainment. That's not real. Yeah. And it's good that people are waking up, and we'll see what happens in 2021. We've been shown it all in 2020, right? 2020 vision. And now it's 2021, and now it's time to act on the things that we see. And, you know, like I said, we're rolling into their end times. That video from Curtis Stone was from today, actually. I thought it was interesting how he pretty much mirrored my exact sentiments that I had mentioned many times here on the live stream. Is like, yeah, I think we are rolling into those. We're into the end times now, where we got this rapture thing. Before, people would ask me, we got 5 years. Now, keep in mind, I have been on YouTube for like 8 or 9 years now. So now it's like, yeah, we're at that point where I'm like, yeah, we got the new world order system setting up. We got, you know, people trying to figuring out, you know, who wants to go with the system and who doesn't care about anybody else but themselves, and who is willingly mind controlled for anything just so that they have their lollipops, right? They're wearing masks. They got masks on their kids. They're lining up for vaccines and all this stuff that everybody knows is bad that has actually looked, right? There's no excuse now, guys. There's none. People have put out anti-vaccination and the horrors of vaccines videos for 20 years now. Absolutely no excuse not to know about some of this stuff. Absolutely no excuse to know that, the politics is not real, right? There isn't. For anybody who wants to look, who is willing to actually give up personal bias and find out what the truth is. And like I said, the people that aren't wearing masks probably know what's going on. All right. And you have this nice divide. You got the sheep go to heaven, then the goats go to hell. And the goats, we wearing masks. Pretty harsh statement, but if you want to deny the truth to yourself that bad. Now I realize people have to wear masks for their work. It's not what I'm talking about. Not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about people who voluntarily wear their masks when they're out walking their dog. The people that will come up to you and harass you in a store for not wearing a mask. You know where they're headed. Those guys are playing a video game in their mind. They're live action role playing life. They're all caught up into all the media and their Facebook and their everything. And they think that's the real world. That's the real world. Joe Biden and the Pope and Trump. That's a real world. It's a script. It's a script. What isn't scripted is how people react to a lot of this stuff. And, there's too many people there for that to be running down the Capitol looks real bad for a new world order. Make no mistake, America is the military wing of the new world order. We've been built that way for the last 70 years, since World War II. I think personally, World War II was all about what country could become the military wing of the new world order. I think that was what the whole thing was about. And, Germany had a good lead. They had a good lead. But I don't think they got along with Hitler so well. And they're like, we'll go for the cripple guy. We'll give him all the money in the world to go try and do something. So here we are. And it doesn't look good when your military powerhouse with armed forces bases in every country of the world who's been bombing these poor little countries for how many years now? We're going to go into Korea. We got to go into Vietnam. We got to go into Cambodia. We got to go into Afghanistan. We got to go to Iraq. Right. And now all those people are watching television as we are literally storming the Capitol building. Doesn't make them look very good. It kind of looks like they have no control over anything, which I think is reality. I think a lot of the stuff with the deep state and all these things, and they're spying on you, and they can do all this, that, and the other thing to you, and they'll lock you up in a FEMA camp. I think that's unsubstantiated fears, completely unsubstantiated. So that's my opinion on that. Opinion for entertainment purposes, YouTube. Oh, I mentioned something about election fraud. Did I mention about fraud? I don't know. I'm just reading the news. Strike one. Y'all can find me on library if I disappear. Let's see if we got anything. Otherwise, I'm gonna be out of here, I think. Jesus is the living Son of God. He died for our sins. Says I have to wear a mask when I go into school. Well, if you want to participate in the school, then you have to do that, I guess. I don't know. I'm not familiar with how you get around any of that stuff. I'm sure there's probably a way because it's a public building. But I like I said, when this thing first started, okay, when we're just like a month or two in, I said, look, guys, nobody wear your mask. You can't wear your mask. You have to draw your line in the sand. You have to say there's no laws. You got to do this. You got to do that. Don't let these people get away with it. And now that we're a year into it, I've been saying, look, just do your thing. Go along to get along, because it's obvious that half the population, at least, is completely mind controlled. And that's how it is. So like, they're not going to do anything. They're probably going to starve to death the first time the lights go out. These people are probably useless in real, life. If you knew these people who obsessively wear the mask, think that the news is all real, and all of this stuff is not just propaganda. There's a huge percentage of people that are like that. And so now I'm like, no, just go get along, wear your mask. If you feel you need to wear a mask, fight it where you think you can fight it. All right. And just bide your time and see what happens, and be reactive to what's coming down the pipe. Don't think, oh my gosh, they're coming. They're going to close us. They're not going to let me in the store because I don't have and get all worried about stuff. You have to wait for something to happen before you can actually decide how you are going to react to the situation. Don't get all these ideas. And then when someone says, sir, do you mind to put your mask in? Sure. I'll go, what do you want? Blah, 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 blah. And flip out on somebody. You see a lot of that where people just flip out because they're so tense. They hate wearing a mask. So they go to Walmart and they're like, I'm going to show them, and I'm going to show them. It's the first person that talks to me. And they go in there without their mask and they're all keyed up and they're ready to take a swing at some little 16-year-old kid who was ordered by his boss to go over there to ask him if he needed a mask. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. I don't recommend you go to Walmart at all. It's better off buying it from Jeff Bezos. Because look, of all the things out there, at least Bezos gives you a good product, does exactly what you asked for. Sure, he's putting down everybody else out of business, but that's not your problem, right? You're not the one who closed your doors because of COVID. He's there to provide the service. Now, in another 10 years, Jeff Bezos' prices are going to go through the roof when everyone's out of business. But hey, it's better than Walmart. All right. Go in there and get yourself face scanned and masked up. Go in there with, man, if you want to see something hilarious, on YouTube and get the pictures of Walmart or something, the customers of Walmart, and it's like a slideshow. Holy craziness. Yeah. No Walmart. Better to go with Amazon. Dom Houston says you got COVID 3 weeks ago. Could they confirm that it was? Because last I checked, they could not. I am confirmed as much as nobody wants to believe me. Well, I'll just say I can't give medical advice and I can't say anything about medicine, but I said that COVID was a fantasy disease that they made up that doesn't exist. And that what they're looking for is an actual natural byproduct of your cells, because they can't see viruses. And guess what? I was proven factually correct by the government over in Europe, who says they literally cannot actually find COVID-19. And then you go, well, how are you testing for it? Oh, we're testing of the antibodies of COVID. If you cannot find COVID-19, how can you test for antibodies of it? Anyways, that's all stuff you're never going to see unless you go looking for it. You're never going to see those things where all the suits are filed saying, look, you have to prove to me that this exists before I am going to do any of these things that you're asking me to do. And they could not prove it. Okay, guys? Viruses are so small, you need an electron microscope to even see them. If they exist, that means that they're invisible. So you cannot see it, and you cannot prove that it's there. You're making vaccines for it. It's a myth. If you're sick with something, yeah, it's wintertime. You got a cold or a flu or strep throat or mumps or measles or something. People get sick. Yeah, the invisible enemy. It's exactly it. You got to be afraid of everything around you. Everything around you. Yeah, to me, if something is, you can't test for it, it's invisible. The symptoms are all over the place. To me, it says that it's a total fraud. Okay. And even the guy who does the test, who I think they killed actually recently, the guy who invented the test for it says that it cannot test for COVID. So he says, You can turn the test up high enough, you can get everything, which is why they're getting AIDS results. When they're testing for COVID, they're getting people positive for AIDS. It's because they ran the thing through the machine so many times, it's just pulling out whatever it can. It's ridiculous. But if you're one of those so inclined people, wear your mask, take 2 vaccines, go to your public indoctrination camp, watch as much news as you possibly can, and cheer for Biden or Trump. It doesn't really matter at this point. So that's what we got. That's what we got. Mike from Crystal Lake, Illinois, checking in. How you doing, Mike? I'm just about to finish up here. I don't think that there's anything that I missed now. There are some other things I wanted to talk about with about the police situation, and the police, they voted to get rid of the cops in Minneapolis, and the cops, because of COVID, are kind of going crazy too. Well, there's some really wild stuff going on with those guys. And, I don't really want to get into that because, of course we're storming the Capitol building this week, guys. We're storming the tomorrow's the rapture. We're storming the Capitol today. Tomorrow, rapture. I don't know, but sometime soon. Like I said, I think we're there though. And question came up. I don't remember what it was, but we had to go through. I had to explain the governments, the world leaders, and the world systems of power, where you have the statue where it was shown to Nebuchadnezzar, where you got the one of gold and you got the shoulders of bronze, chest of tin or something like that, copper. Yeah. And then the legs of iron. And then we're in the part where the feet is iron and miry clay. And I'm like, yeah, we're in the part of iron and miry clay, where it's this really fragile technocracy kind of garbage that is never going to hold together. It's the weakest empire of all empires. And that is when God comes in and smashes it. All right. And so, yeah, we're there. Hold on and hang on for the ride. Keep your head down for a little bit until all this election nonsense goes through. If you have the opportunity and you're not like super in debt or anything, when you get your free money from the government, if you can afford to get rid of $600, go out on the Coinbase and look at places where you could put your money. What I suggest is going up there and look at Bitcoin and write down what the price is at. All right. And then look at it in 2 weeks. All right. And, or pick something. Of course, there are better companies than other. I'm not going to give financial advice. Because the company that I like's been losing money for 2 months, but whatever. Go up there, write down the Bitcoin number. Right now, it's at almost $40,000 right today. Okay, so look at it. You write down, go to Coinbase.com, write down what it is, and then look at it again in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you can see the chart as to where it goes up and down and stuff like that, and look and see if that might be a viable alternative. Because let me explain something too on that before I get out of here. We're talking about, everyone says, buy silver, buy gold. I am in that camp. I like that. I like that idea, but I never considered this until Max Kaiser, the guy of Bitcoin, explained it to why Bitcoin was actually so good. Now, granted, it's an electronic exchange. So if you're not in an electronic system, then it's obviously worthless, but so is gold. You're going to trade your gold to your neighbor for something? I mean, it's just not feasible, but the deal is, precious metals, of course, gold is obviously going to go up, maintains its value. Silver obviously going to go up. But here's the thing. When gold is worth just a huge amount of money, that gives the incentive for guys like me, and anybody can get gold, guys. For guys like me to go down to the river with my pan and start panning gold. And all of these mega corporations to go out there and start looking for gold. So the more that people want the gold, the more demand there is, the more industry is going to go out there and clear a mountain away to go find more gold until the system kind of evens out. Gold's not a limited resource, guys. It gets reused. It's an element. It can never be broken down. It's it'll always be around. All them computer parts and all that stuff goes in the landfill. You could probably dig up gold there. All right. So because of that, something like Bitcoin and some of these cryptos, there is a limited supply. They can never create more. It's built into it to have scarcity. So even good investments like gold and silver and things still cannot compare to something like a cryptocurrency. Granted, you get into these things like China where you have total lockdown and total bad stuff, right? You still have the ability to take your Bitcoin and store it on your person. And then if you can go someplace else where you have internet access, you have your money. So it's not like if the Bitcoin server dies, you're broke. That's not how it works. Not how it works at all. So that's the last I have to say on that. That's one thing I've been studying, along with woodworking, which I've got to talk to Frank and see what he's been up to. Along with woodworking, we're studying all about crypto and positive things here going in the future, trying to stay busy during the winter time. And yeah, getting set up on Odyssey and Library, which I recommend that everyone does who has a channel with, I think you need 1,000 subscribers before it will auto back. I'm not positive on that, but it's a really good setup. And critical mass. If you offend a psychopathic Freemason, you might get on a list and a gang stalked to death. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. People are up in arms about rigged elections. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's criminal gangs all over the place, but what are you supposed to do about them unless you're actually directly have to deal with them? If they're in my community and I directly have to deal with them, well, then I'm going to have to get a posse together and I'm going to have to go do something about it. But if it's not going on in my community, there's not anything I can physically do about it. I am not a very well-off guy. I would fit into the terms of dirt poor, right? So it's not like I can really even send finances off to people. So you kind of have to only worry about things you can handle and take care of. And right now, one of the most important things is keeping your breathing hole free and unobstructed, right? Just don't wear the mask. All right. Put up with a little bit of a fight from the stores if they want to give you any. I have never had a problem. I had a problem once at Menards, and that was a joke. Still went and did my shopping. So yeah, that's what I got, guys. I've been going on for a while now. So, stay safe, keep hunkered down, and don't get all emotional about stuff and just, react with a good, clear head, and yeah, that's what we got. Hopefully Trump is everything that QAnon says he is, that he's going to go drain the swamp and go after pedos and all this stuff. Like Curtis Stone says, we all hope that's true, but odds, I ain't betting on that. Right. All right. Well, you all have a good one. Good night. God bless. And we'll see you probably soon. Now that I know my stuff is going to be backed up on Odyssey. Check it out. So with that, we're out of here.